Hello everyone. Welcome to the session. So we are going to talk about Schiphol's journey, how they moved their pipelines from Hive Metastore to Unity Catalog. So we have a Databricks team who are working closely with them on this migration journey. So I'm Shashidhar, I'm the manager for Specialist Architects team based in Amsterdam. And I was also involved closely with the Schiphol Group in terms of designing, planning, and architecting the migration. So I also have Suva with me here.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Suvadeep Sinha, solutions architect at Databricks, and I was working with Yelle and his team very closely throughout the whole process of migration.
Okay, yeah. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. At least we got some more people in the room, so we have more people attending than we have presenting. So that's always a good sign. Let me start with a question from my end. Who has never heard of Schiphol before? Okay, last week. Well, good. Well, that's good. Well, at least we have one person who will, and judging by your response, you're not here by accident. So that's also quite good. So let me start with a short introduction about myself. These guys come in pairs, so I needed to bring some reinforcements on the screen as well. So this is my family. Married to Sandra, I have 2 kids, a golden retriever and a rabbit. We couldn't get the rabbit to pose on the screen, so you're going to have to do it with half of a golden retriever. I've been working at Schiphol for about 1.5 years now, and I've been in IT for about 30 years. Started out as an engineer. I was actually quite bad at it. So what do you do when you're bad at engineering? You become a product manager, and that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. So that's me. Within Schiphol, I'm responsible for the data platform, we do a lot of cool stuff at Schiphol. Schiphol is Royal Schiphol Group. That's our official company name. We own the 3 major airports in the Netherlands. Plus, we have a minor stake in one other airport in the Netherlands. So basically, just all of them. We also have a minor stake in Brisbane Airport and Hobart Airport. So we're quite international, and we run Terminal 4 of JFK here in the States. And we have some strategic partnerships with some airports all across the world. And that's a couple of weeks also with Copenhagen Airport. So there's a couple of people from Copenhagen Airport here. So nice to see you guys. Last year we processed about, there were 76 million passengers passed through Schiphol. 76 across all airports in the Netherlands and 67 million across Schiphol Airport. But it makes us the 4th largest airport in Europe and 17th largest in the world. We have about 27 square kilometers of space. And it's hard to imagine that kind of square footage. Maybe a question for you guys: how many soccer pitches would this be? So 27 square kilometers. There's a prize. So if you get it right, you get a prize. 900? Well, that's not even close. It's 4,500 soccer pitches. So that's a lot of square footage, a lot of runways that we cover. And you can imagine that all of this square footage, all of this infrastructure, and all these passengers and all these flights generate a lot of data. So we do pretty cool stuff with data on our platform. And I just wanted to give you some examples so you have a bit of a context of what we're talking about, and when we go into the technical details a bit more, why we use them. So we use data for baggage, mainly, at least from our platform, we use it for baggage prediction. We want to make sure that we have the right people in the right place to take off your luggage when you travel via Schiphol, and make sure that it gets processed in time. We've created an application called DeepTurn. We created that within our department. This uses AI, machine learning, and data from our platform, historical data, but also real-time data in the form of cameras that we point towards on every gate. And we use it to predict turnaround time of our aircraft. So, and that really is really important because our square footage is big, but we have a limited amount of space. And if an aircraft is late, then it has all kinds of consequences businesses down the line, or with like food trucks who want to deliver the food, cleaning people, all that kind of stuff. And that makes it really important to predict that part. We also offer it as a product. So if you happen to own an airport or planning to buy one, let me know. Then I can hook you up with our application later. Last one is PAX flow. We call it PAX passenger flow, and it's quite interesting that we track all of the passengers across our 650,000 square meters of terminal space. And we track to predict time, waiting times, and reduce security waiting times. So there's a lot of data, and to be honest, we were struggling a bit with our data because it's we have like 20 different data teams doing all kinds of nice and very cool stuff on Databricks, but it's not always governed quite well. And sometimes we don't know who accesses what data, and that was really a problem. So what are you going to do if you can't call Houston or you can't call the Ghostbusters? You call Databricks. So we called Sashi, we called Suva, and we said, look, we have a problem, please help us out with our data governance, data management. And they said, well, the answer is?
Yeah, the answer is Unity Catalog, right? So basically, as you saw, like the data landscape is quite wide, and there are multiple teams with siloed architectures and fragmented governance. So yeah, so that's the main background of why Schiphol wanted to move to UC. It's not just like the technology upgrade, but also a lot of business reasons for that. So what UC can do, of course, it brings the enterprise-wide governance. It brings everything to the central manageable platform where you can set access rules, govern different teams, federate the governance, delegate to the right teams in the right way. But not just that, I think the bigger vision is also harmonize your data first and bring it to the UC. But in the future, it will eventually enable all the new use cases like the Gen AI or the semantic models or the intelligence part of the data. So one part is migration, definitely, but it also kind of setting the Schiphol for the next wave of use cases that they can build. Maybe I will pass it on to Suva to explain how did we really adapt the UC to the Schiphol's architecture.
Yeah, so the primary thing that Unity Catalog unlocks for Schiphol is, like Sashi mentioned, unified governance and data management, right? So that was the biggest driver behind this. However, this also brings in built-in lineage, as you all saw, as you are already probably be using. The data governance team plays a very big part in this user journey. We'll talk about it in the later as well. And then they start using new features, primarily the lakehouse monitoring, which was very crucial to understand the data quality, understand the data drift. So these were some of the biggest drivers that motivated Schiphol to move to UC. So here's a solution architecture on some of the tools that Schiphol uses as a platform. This is not all, by the way. But here you see the main thing that I want you guys to take away is the medallion architecture naming. So the naming is actually landing, turnaround, and takeoff, very airportish. And then UC sits on top of the whole architecture governing the data, and then Colibra serves as the enterprise data architecture in this whole space. Yep, next slide. Yeah.
So if you look at migration of Unity Catalog, right? So it's not just like, okay, moving your pipelines, moving your data, but there is a lot of different components UC also integrating. If you look from pre-UC era, like where we have high meta stores, like workspace users, identities, or networking setup, right? So there is a lot of different components UC is trying to bring into one place. So there is, we have divided the whole journey into 4 phases that you see here. So the planning is key because organically you might have grown different objects in your use cases. It's not just pipelines and data, but also the different type of pipelines, what exactly the pipelines are doing, and how they're interacting with the data in the background. So what we have here is basically a tool called UCX. So this is an in-house Databricks tool that we have built in the field for you to first discover all your assets. So this is pretty crucial because in enterprise world, you might have things which would have been developed and gone unnoticed. So the UCX will help you first discover what exactly are the candidates that you have to migrate. And once you have this overall picture of different assets, different interactions that each pipeline is having or the components, then you sit and figure out like how do we do this, right? So start with discovery, and then I think one of the key aspect also is to pick the right use case for first migration. It could be like your toughest workspace. I think everyone has one in their deployments. Or it could be like one of your biggest use case where a lot of your business critical things are going on. So the finding this pilot use case is key. After you discover like your whole landscape, start with what is your right candidate for migration, because this is where you will try to test things, learn, adapt, and then move into the, learn and build on top of things. So once you do all this, we get into the design phase. So there are, as I said, there are different components here. So first thing is identity management. So UC is actually bringing identity along with data governance in one place. And if you see how Databricks used to do identity management before, it was completely like at the workspace level, and workspace admins was managing all the identities directly from your cloud providers. So what UC is tied to is also like a new layer. What we have built is called account admin layer, where identities are centralized into Databricks account panel, which then becomes your identities for the UC, which you can use with. So basically, UC doesn't work with your previous identities, and it's very important to first figure out like how do you want to centralize your identities. And once we have it, then you go to the data part, like what is the right strategy for you? Do you want to clone the data, or depends on what type of data formats you use, how much data you have, all those kind of things. And then you also design like how you want to organize your data, right? Like the catalogs, schemas, because it's a different world once you move away from Hive Metastore, and it's a good world, right? And then you go to actually the governance part, because when we think of UC, we jump into the governance, but there are a few things which you first figure out. How do you set the foundations for the future? And that's where like the design aspect of these basic components, what UC is bringing into one space. And then UC also provides you a layer for setting up all this infrastructure in a very centralized way through infrastructure as code. So UC has support for like Terraform, the Terraform provider, what Databricks has all the support for UC interactions that you can do. So we highly recommend to use these layers to set up the foundational platform for, to be compatible with the future, expansion in the enterprise scale. And then the meta stores. So this is a bit shift away from what you would have been used to before UC, because earlier, every workspace had a meta store, and here UC is combining this to like one meta store. Basically, we don't want you to think about like what is my meta store about. Just think of it as a layer or a service in the background which has information about all of your data sets, tables, who are the users, right? And because we are taking this away from the old architecture, so Databricks now has better capabilities for you to, what we are trying to build on top of Unity Catalog layer, like all the AI stuff, what we announced. And there is also a difference in how your data interactions happen. So earlier, it used to be like each cloud has its own way of accessing the data. It could be like service principals, identity, like in the ADLS, it's a different world. In S3, you need to do set of different things, IAM roles, all those kind of things. UC is also bringing those into standard objects, like what we call as storage credentials. So these are all like the foundational infrastructure pieces that you can automate when you migrate to the UC. So once we figure out like all the plans for the foundation pieces, we go to the upgrade. So in upgrade, you can actually see, we strongly recommend picking one workspace. You can split this into like different layers. So there can be a guidance. What we usually do when Databricks is closely working with customers is we set up the guideline like how your upgrade should happen, at the workspace level. So this is like generic recommendations, what we give, but depending on what workspace is doing, what type of jobs, there can be some changes. So here what you see in upgrade is the standard set of steps that you follow for every workspace that you want to migrate. But it can also change depending on the use case. For example, for Schiphol, like the first workspace what we picked, or the use case is CDP. This is central data platform, and it has like a lot of tweaks which we had to consider or have a different step in the process. But at the high level, you can see we start with the upgrading the workspace identities. This is pre-step for any UC work that you do. And UC doesn't really work with your previous identities, which are in workspace. And this is automated completely using the same UCX, which I talked about. And you can just like have to do it before starting anything for migrating to UC. And then from the design, you pick like what are the catalogs that you want to have them created, set up your credentials, automate from your Terraform scripts, what we have built, right? And then decide a strategy like how you move the data. Is it through like the deep clones, or you just copy the data, using the CTAS. So this is like the choice that you have to make depending on the formats, size, all the different things. And finally, like once you have the data, once you have the identities, once you have the catalogs, everything ready, then you go to the other objects of the workspace, like your jobs, dashboards, or the other parts like the clusters, everything else. So basically, it looks like there are too many things, but once you have UCX run and you figure out like how to do the migration for each component once, it's just a repetitive process for everything. You can easily automate, using the deployment scripts. Then we go to the transition. So this is where you really go into the business logic, try to change things if you really have to change, depending on your access patterns. I think one of the biggest access pattern what we see is basically, accessing your data with like the file paths, right? Like the direct ADLS paths. I think that's something we strongly avoid once you move to UC. You basically can't do it anymore. You just have to use the table names, and that keeps the storage, that removes the storage coupled with the table names, right? So you just operate at the table names. Don't worry about like how the storage is mapped in the background, where it is. That's something for like the service, like the UC to figure it out. And then once you have jobs and everything upgraded, you move the consumers, like the end consumers. So you can either go from, I think what we usually recommend, you go from left to right? So you can easily switch the consumers at the goal layer, for example, and then figure out like all the things in the background. So the business users won't be affected too much during the migration. And that's pretty important for also the Schiphol when we did this, so that there is no change for your business in the day-to-day operations. So we do recommend to leave your data in the old fashion, right? Like the stale data, where you eventually stop ingesting the data into your old tables. So there is a phase where you probably end up with like multiple jobs trying to ingest the same data, but one processing and writing to the new tables in UC, one is the old way of directly the Hive metastore. So we'll go into the details of that. And the last step is actually cleanup, right? So this is something like we neglect, but there are also features what we are introducing now. For example, there is a built-in feature now where you can actually decommission like the DBFS from the workspace. And eventually, we'll also get to the Hive metastore decommissioning. So as of now, it's still available, but eventually we are rolling out things where you can just hide the Hive metastore completely from the workspace. Yeah, so these are like the high-level steps, what we have tailored for Schiphol and how the migration happens. So I think if you see, the planning and cleanup is just like the one step, like you do it once, and then the transition is where you iterate over multiple workspaces, depending on how many workspaces you have. So if you go into the design, like the model, how it works, so at the UC level, we have different personas. So one is account admin, right? So this is like the universal role, what UC has introduced. It kind of can control identities and also the data part. And we also have something called Metastore admin, who is more like a super user for all the data in your Metastore. So this is like another persona. So, and then we also have the old workspace admins who are still managing each workspace access, cluster management, all those kind of things. And finally, we also have billing admins, which is a kind of a new thing. We enable it through like system tables, which is again backed by UC in the background. So these are different roles what UC introduces, but maybe I'll ask LA, like how did we map this to Schiphol's roles and responsibilities?
Well, it's a very unexpected question, Sashi. I think one of the strategies we chose, also on advice of Databricks, is that we have one central team who is responsible for like being the driver behind the UC migration. In our case, it's our Data Foundation Platform Technology team. We couldn't find a shorter name for it, so this is it. So this is the central team who provides the role as an account admin, and also it helps us to get better governance on that end. We also, for the Metastore admin role, we have a team of data governance consultants, data stewards. So we want them to be responsible for the Metastore administration, making sure that we have the right setup there. And the workspace admins, we just named them workspace admins, but it's actually our data product teams. Now, currently, they have their own workspaces, and we want to have them to keep their own workspaces, so they can have the freedom to develop the very cool products, the data products that I showed before, but also do it within the limits that we provide. And lastly, with regards to the cost management, I mean, it's also one of our key drivers. Is we want to improve, use more data, but then we don't have unlimited budget, or it will be very expensive, or even more expensive if you fly through Schiphol. We want to prevent that. So we have to keep control of our costs. So within Schiphol, we have a dedicated Azure cost manager who keeps track of all our Azure costs, including Databricks, and my Data Foundation the platform technology team, actually we call it the PTT, works closely together with him to make sure that we have this setup right. So if you would translate this to like a design, how would this look?
Yeah. So before I do that, how do you conceptualize this, Yele? Like, how do you see this design coming through for Schiphol, the entire catalog design?
For us it was important that we want to kind of shift away a bit from what we used to use before. So we also chose to do a redesign of our catalog. So before there was just like this one big Hive Metastore and just put everything in one place. And now we're kind of working towards having different subparts. So we're moving towards having catalogs for our different business units. So that's one part of it. We also had a requirement of having these catalogs available on different workspaces. So that was also something that we said. And also we want to give them people the freedom to play around. I think that's basically what we envisioned.
Right. So that's how the vision gets translated into this design of the catalogs. So here you have like workspaces for each like one catalog per workspace, and that also follows the SDLC lifecycle as well. And if you look at the middle pillar, that goes into the vision of Schiphol to eventually have the federated governance. So you follow the hub-spoke model where all the data products are published into the hub. So that's the federated governance where it follows the SDLC lifecycle as well. So the SDLC is very important across both the designs. And then there's the platform technology team that Yele referred to as the PTT. They are responsible for enabling the sandboxes it could be for teams, for different departments, for Gen AI use cases. So that's how the whole catalog design was done. Yeah. So for the domain shared catalog, it's pretty straightforward. So you have the catalog, external location, and the storage credential. So the external location points to one storage account, basically. This is where all the data products get published, and the storage credential, the access connector, points to one single container within that storage account. However, if you look at the catalogs per workspace, which are private to each of the workspaces, you have 3 different external locations, all using the same storage credential, but each of them pointing to different containers. That follows the SDLC of that workspace itself. So that's how the design of both the different type of workspaces were set up, but it follows the same approach. Yes. Next slide. Yeah, and the permission design. So if you look carefully at the schema, so the catalog I explained, right? It follows the SDLC. You have the dev, stage, and production, and the entire thing is owned by the data manager, the data owner, however you want to call it. But the schema, if you see, so LZ stands for landing zone, TA is turnaround, and TO is takeoff. So the first 2 schemas, you have LZ and TA. Those are more source aligned. So those are the source aligned data products which get published in those schemas. And then the turnaround and takeoff product, those are more domain aligned data products. So that's where the central team comes in, who's the hub, where they get the source aligned data products and convert them into domain aligned data products. Yeah, now the permission design for the domain shared catalogs. Now, what happens when you have to segregate permissions based on a star schema model? There's multiple different interlinks between dimensions and facts. That's very tricky to implement. So this is what we came up with. So the schema reader group gets access to read on the schema level, and then individual dimensions and the facts, we created separate groups for each of the star schemas, and that's how the access was granted on a particular star schema, on a particular dimensional model, to segregate the users but still enable the interoperability between the tables and the groups. Right, this is the approach that we also recommend when migrating from Hive Metastore to UC. So there's a phased approach over here, and at one point of time there will be a double run between the old environment and the new environment. So if you look at the top, that's the new workflow, and if you look at the bottom, that's the old workflow. So ultimately the consumer remains the same. The data is read from the Kafka topic. In the center, you have the schema registry, which enforces the schema. And then you have Spark structure streaming jobs that sends data to both the workflows. And for the end user, for consumer, there is no difference between the new workflow and the old workflow, because they are the ones who are validating the data that they get from Yele's team.
Maybe I'll chip in here a bit on like how did we manage to migrate your streaming jobs, which were like running continuously from old system to new system. So there is a catch here, right? Like you can of course set up new jobs, start reading the source, and then ingesting the data. But we wanted to make sure like when you make this transition, you don't really lose your historical data, because it should still be available for the consumers when they switch to the new system. So here what you really see is basically we're going into the structure streaming internals a bit, where how the Kafka tracking happens in the stream. So basically it goes to the, like how Spark works is basically goes to each Kafka partition, checks out what are the offsets you have read, and just process it in the batch, like what is left from the previous offset. So what we did here is basically to look at your current stream state to understand where exactly your Kafka snapshot is read until that point, and we map it to exact like the offset in the delta table, like what was the commit which was corresponding to your Kafka offset. So this trick you can apply for if your source is Kafka and your sink is delta. And these offsets are basically what we use in the new streams, because in a way what we end up doing is we take snapshot from your previous delta table, which has your historical data. We migrate to the new table, but when we start stream on this new table, you don't want to read your historical data again because it's already processed, right? So when you start this new stream, you actually end up setting this starting offsets, which will say I have processed until this commit in delta, but only process the new data after this point. So that is your like daily data, what you're ingesting, ignoring your historical data. So this we typically use it for disaster recovery or high availability compliance systems. But here I think it's very relevant because if you have a streaming job and if you want to keep continuity of the job when you migrate to Unity Catalog, so you need to map those offsets and track it properly so that you don't end up with a lot of duplicates when you move to the new system. Yeah, so with this, I'll probably give to Yele to kind of summarize like the next steps here.
Yeah. Okay. So I think for us, it's like Lisa. How I look at it, the technical part is easy. Relatively easy, at least. So obviously, when you have like very cool engineers as you guys helping us out, makes things a lot easier as well. But you start out with the technology, you make the proper design, and then you start working according to the phase approach that Sashi told about. And I think the next, the next step is where it gets exciting, at least according to me, is getting new processes in place, getting the data governance processes in place, getting teams to work in a different way, accessing stuff in a different way. I think that's something that we're really working towards. We are kind of in the middle of our migration, so you have to come back next year. We'll do another presentation on the completion of the whole migration. But yeah, that's where the key process is again getting people on board, seeing the value of the new features that Unity Catalog brings, and then in the end getting enterprise governance, because that's what our goal is. So that's what it is. Yeah, and I say if I can summarize it, then our journey or the things that we just discussed. I think for us, the key was the collaboration with Databricks. And I'm not just saying that because they will kick me out if I say something else. So no, I really mean it, and I'm Dutch, and I only say stuff I mean. That's how we work. I think for us it really helps that we had one Databricks solution architect with us for 2 days a week, helping us making the right designs, also with the preparations towards that point. That really helped us a lot. The other thing that we, and that I would definitely recommend if you do any kind of migration to Unity Catalog, is to have one central team be responsible for this part. With us, it's the platform technology team. Makes it really good to have one place people can reach out to, contact, and drive the change towards this one governance model. I think that's the thing. We also have a couple of challenges, of course. As I said, the last part, getting people on board and implementing a new way of working. These are all quite something that we still need to tackle. We have to keep the business running because everyone still wants to fly, so and get their luggage and do all the different things. So we have to make sure that we keep the well, I would say keep the boat afloat, but that's the wrong analogy. So keep the airplane flying. That's the better one. And also, we took the opportunity to change to a new governance model. That's maybe not something you would do, in at least I try to kind of keep projects as small as we can. But yeah, here it was very necessary, and we'll reap the benefits for it. Yeah, in the end, apart from all the other benefits that we have, having better cost attribution, better cost control, yeah, that kind of helps us getting along. So yeah, I think that's about it.